Hey everybody, in today's conversation, I'm talking with the CEO of DDMO, Veronica. She's created an awesome tool called Popul8 that I think is trying to revolutionize the way that characters are done in video games. They're already used in City Skylines 2, which is kind of what brought it to my attention, and it's a really impressive tool that allows you to do a lot of the character-y things that you would want to do in a video game almost automagically. There's a lot to it. When I first got into this conversation, I thought, oh, this is just for big AAA places or places that are making really big, impressive, crazy stuff. But as we go a little bit deeper, and if you hang on to the end, you'll find out there's actually some stuff in there that applies to you directly almost immediately. So I recommend you stay, hang out, check out the entire conversation. It was really interesting. And let me know what you think down below in the comments afterwards. Before we get started, though, just a quick word from our sponsor, which is me. If you're interested in learning game programming from the start, make sure you check out my game programmer course. I've linked it down below. And if you already know the basics, come join us for the multiplayer mastery course. Learn how to build 2 different game types. Join us in the live calls where we discuss multiplayer development and a whole lot more and have a lot of fun. All right, let's get on to the interview. Hello, welcome everybody. Today I'm here with Veronica from DDMO, who's the maker of Popul8. This is an awesome tool that is in one of my favorite games, and we're here to talk about what it is, how it works, and how it might be able to help you in your game development. So thank you very much, Veronica, for both creating the tool and joining us.
Thanks, Jason. I'm really excited to be here today. I think it's probably the first podcast we're doing to talk about Popul8. So really delighted with the intro to talk to you today.
Well, this is going to be exciting, I think, for a lot of people who haven't seen Popul8, don't know what it is, and are doing game development. If they have characters in their game, this is, I think, something that they should at least investigate and look into, pay attention to this, and see if it might fit and be a good solution for some of the possible problems. Speaking of that, can you give kind of the elevator pitch for what Popul8 is and why I think it's pretty damn cool, and obviously why you think it's cool and why people are using it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we created Popul8 to really solve an extremely long-lasting problem, which is how can you create infinite number of characters that they all look different, and most importantly, that can leverage the creative artist with the style of their game and the specifications of their characters. So we really, really wanted to give the artist and the technical directors the ability to create infinite variations of characters in the style of their game, in the specifications of their characters.
It seems like, at least in City Skylines, that's what I'm seeing. It's just, I walk around, I've got them back behind me, but it's just every character is different. There's tons of variation, and there's an insane number of them. And I mean, I know I've built character customization systems before, and probably a lot of people have have built character customization systems before, and I've never tried to go anywhere near infinite. Usually I'm like, 5 or 10 combinations of things. Like, when you decided to build this, what was the driving factor? Did you see that a lot of people, this was like just a solution that a lot of people were trying to solve and you could do it drastically better? Or what was kind of the origin here?
That's a great question. I mean, and it has a 2-step story, I would say. So the first part of Popul8, I think it started like about 18 years ago. So people would say, oh my God, like 18 years ago, what do I mean? So I was doing, exactly, right? So I was doing my PhD in Barcelona, and I spent about a year and a half talking to game studios and film studios and asking them what was really difficult for them, time consuming, labor intensive. And 18 years ago, they said, gosh, character creation is really, really slow. So I said, I'm just going to automate the whole process. I'm going to automate how do you create digital characters. And I completely failed miserably for my PhD. I only solved a tiny piece of the problem back then, which is I automated the rig creation. So I created an algorithm that allowed rig retargeting. So you could create the rig of a character. So for those that don't know what a rig is, hopefully they do, but if they don't, it's kind of like if you have a puppet and you have the strings of a puppet, so how you manipulate that character, that's the rig. So I created the systems that allows you to create the rig on one character with one mesh and transfer it to a completely different mesh. And then that algorithm became extremely popular. And it's being used in, for instance, if you ever go to Universal Studios, I think I can tell it now, it's 18 years back then. If you go to Universal Studios, I did all the faces for the Simpsons ride. So with my algorithm. I know, right?
I've been on that ride many, many times. That is awesome.
So the algorithm was very first years, many, many years ago. I think it was like 2008 probably when they did it at Universal. And then I presented that tech at SIGGRAPH and at GDC and many places. And then I decided to go R&D and had a research lab for a decade. And over that decade, we continue developing with PhD students different algorithms here and there to automate the character creation process until we then created, or we came up with the idea of building DDMO, which is creating digital characters automatically. So we managed to finally automate the whole end-to-end process from a concept art to a fully rigged, ready-to-animate digital character this year. So I spent about 2 months in November last year talking to game studios again. So I did exactly what I did 18 years ago. And for either happy or frustration, I don't know, I find out that the problem remained the same. Game studios were still struggling on creating digital characters in a fast way with huge amount of variation. So in 2 months, we talked to Colossal Order. They say, we really need this for City Skyline, and we build the product on top of all our IP in a couple of months. And we managed to, deliver to Colossal all the characters they needed in a couple of months. The software. So we built Popul8 in a couple of months.
Wow, that is very impressive. I didn't realize that it was such a short timeline. I assumed you guys have been building on this thing forever. That is really cool. I mean, it shows just how well you've got the craft down and got it working, because I mean, it looks great in game and it just kind of works. Can you go into maybe a little more detail about how it's different from, say, like somebody watching who's built a character customization system, maybe they got some blend shapes on their character and they have, a male and a female model and stuff. Like how is your system different from that, and how does it kind of allow them to maybe not do all? I get the sense that it allows them to not have to do all that work and not do all the pain of setting up characters, because I don't mean to keep going on, but when I was at Sony on the MMOs, adding new characters was like one of the biggest things that just got avoided. People always wanted a new race because, it would be so cool. But the hard part wasn't like getting the data in or the design of it. It was getting the art, getting the character in, and then making all those items and everything work with that new race. Right? So how does your system kind of differ from like somebody hand building their own thing? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what is really, really important and at the heart of what we want to do is really preserve, the artist concept art, right? And the technical directors or the character riggers and animators, how they define the mesh, how they define the rig, how they define the number of textures that they want to use. So we really want to make sure that we do not build a software that is generic, right? Because that's usually the problem. You're an artist or you're a TD and you say, I want to create a new character, and the reason everyone ends up hating it is because they have to adapt to the software someone gives them, right? So we said, okay, we're going to do it the other way around. We're going to ask the artist to define the foundation. So if they want to have, let's say, a race of elves, they will define one elf with the specifications and the art look that they want, right? They can even give us a couple of different examples of how different elves would look like, the extremes, let's say, of how, the ears.
The fat elf and the skinny one, big
exactly.
ears.
Yeah. They can give us one, or they can give us extremes, however they want. So we then go back and we adapt the algorithms to those to that style and the geometry that they want to use, the number of polygons and so on, and then we build up a version of the software for that studio, with those specifications in. And so then the artist can define ranges, right? So for example, let's say you have ears that you want them like this big, and the minimum will be here. And so they can define ranges, and then we can use our computer vision and machine learning algorithms to randomize within those limits, okay? So on the back end, we have data models that we create, like synthetic databases that then will feed the software to generate all the variations. And we're very expert in micro details, especially in the face. Bodies are easier, right? Because you can say if you want more muscles, less muscles. So we have those extremes, and then we can just generate all the variations in the middle. So it's a combination of computer vision, computer graphics, and machine learning. And then what we're really, really good at is at automating. So we try to automate everything that is possible. So for example, let's say you want to create 10,000 characters. And if you load 10,000 characters on your graphic card, it will probably explode, right? Because you're using 10,000 draw calls. So what we have done are also algorithms to optimize the data. So instead of loading 10,000, you load one draw call, and then the rest, we have an algorithm that will generate the variations for kind of like we store the variation to generate those other 10,000s, okay? For example.
Nice. Okay, so some good performance optimization for the rendering. That was one of the things I was curious about. You get this variation, and if you just slap in 10,000 characters, obviously it would be a big problem without something special going on there. That's really, really cool. I didn't realize you were doing that, but it totally makes sense now that I think about it.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure the upcoming games are going to be showing updates of that uses our tech, and you will start seeing, hundreds and hundreds of characters in scene that before you could not see, even with a lot of high detail, right? So it's very exciting. Yeah.
That actually sounds really, really cool. One of the things that I noticed too in some of the videos was that it's also being used in that Avalon game. Because I know people might look at the city skylines and they use relatively low resolution characters because they're not the core of the game. The game is the city, but they're still really, I think they look great. But Avalon is like super high definition characters too. It shows, I think, that other extreme. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way to generate the characters is the same. So that's the beauty of the product that we have built. So we have an underlying technology that is the same across game projects or different games that someone might need. So for Avalon, they said when they came to us, they wanted just to do characters that are going to run on Unreal. So City Skylines runs on Unity, Avalon runs on the Unreal Engine. So we are completely platform agnostic, which is important to know. Yeah. And with Avalon, they wanted to leverage everything, the render that the Unreal Engine has, right? So we also provide with the shaders for them, and they gave us higher resolution characters. And with them, what was interesting is they wanted if someone looks at their trailer, you will see very sharp edges. So they wanted like faces that were very, kind of like square type of traits. So what we had to do on our end is they came back and we adapt the algorithm with those specifications. They gave us a few concept arts, and we then fine-tune until they were happy, so until the creative director was happy visually, and they say, yes, we nail it, that's the style we want. And so then we had another algorithm that is called a deep shape predictor. We actually presented it at SIGGRAPH, I think in 2022. If someone wants to look at it. And it's an algorithm that allows you to create infinite synthetic characters with no input data, right? So the system learns. So you say, I want, Caucasians, or I want more Asian, or I want a mix. So we can prompt the system, and then the characters will come out with the stylization that Avalon wanted, like this more square type of shape, but human looking with mix of Asian, Caucasian, African, whatever. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. So we populated their virtual world that way. With both City Skyline and Avalon, what the software allows you to also do is the artist can upload the garments, right? All the assets. I don't know if you were gonna ask me that, but anyway.
Oh yeah, this is something I think everybody is interested in. It's one of the hardest parts with character customization, and it was with the MMOs. It was the thing that stopped it. It was the armor and the helmets were the worst. But all of the different pieces that needed to equip, all that stuff made it so that character customization was super limited, and adding new character bases was an extremely expensive and slow thing.
Yeah, so that what Popul8 allows you is, you can upload, the artist will create once, let's say, all the helmets. They will create all the armors, like the swords, all the props that they want to use. They will just create them once. It will upload it into our library of assets inside Popul8 or inside the in-game editor, so if it is running at runtime. And then once you are in your character editor, you can kind of like handpick, you say how you want the body of the character to be, short, tall, thin, muscular. You define the face, you fine tune it if you wish, or you just click random and it will just create it. And then all the assets will already be asset fitted to that new character. So we have an algorithm that allows to modify the assets like the armor, the hats, and fit it exactly into the characters. So that's one of the strengths. And the other one that a lot of people ask about, which is really, really difficult, is animation retargeting. So you can create the animation once. Again, we always need to be created once, so we don't do procedural. We don't create procedural garments. We don't create procedural animations, so that someone needs to create it. And then animation is the same. You upload it, and then the algorithm for animation retargeting will adapt to the different heights and volume the character would have. The same with facial animation. So you only do it once, and then we retarget it. So that's also a huge problem that we managed to solve.
Yeah, that's a big one. People always struggle with. I was curious on the implementation part too. So, say I'm using Popul8, working on a game and working with you on this. What does it look like if I'm in Unity? How am I actually? Let's just go with Unity specifically, because most people are probably in there. What does the workflow look like in the engine? How do I've got my characters. How do I actually put them into the game? You said you're doing some stuff with the rendering to make it nice and fast, but what's that workflow like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the software itself is engine agnostic. So Popul8 runs engine agnostic, and then it will output an FBX file, right? So you can then upload that FBX file, or you can output a batch of characters, so you don't need to output one by one. You can output all the characters that you've been generating, and then like you would do in a traditional way in Unity, you can upload them into your project or scene. So with Popul8, we don't have a specific plugin that runs Popul8 inside Unity, even though Popul8 has been built on top of Unity, we used Unity to build Popul8, right? So you just export the characters. For the shaders and for the optimization, so that I talked before, instead of having 1,000 draw calls, you have one draw call. We do have a sample code that, and for the shading, the same thing, that we will give the game studio, and we say, hey, here is the sample code, and then they'll implement it inside their game engine. Because each game studio develops their own game engine, so our code will help them integrate the characters with the optimization. So we give that both for Unity or for Unreal. We are working as we speak on something that most customers are asking, which is the next level, which is the SDK for Popul8. So that's what we expect to deliver in the next few months. So the whole goal is game studios don't need to create ever again, over and over, a character editor. So we can give them the SDK, and in runtime, they can create the user experience using our SDK. So boom, off they go. They will have a new character editor without having to build all the pieces. So.
Oh wow, that sounds amazing, and probably what I think most of the people would be the most interested in here. And that sounds like it's kind of targeting everybody. Like it's kind of publicly. When you say that SDK, it makes me think like any old indie dev can go grab it, try it out, and see if it fits well into their game. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So I don't know if I can, just let me know if I'm saying something completely out of question. If anyone is interested on learning more about the SDK or even saying, hey, these are the features that we would love to see, please drop me an email. We do have, a ton of requests from our current customers, but if, the more we hear about people that would love to use the tool and the software, the better, because we learn from what people want. We cannot imagine because we've been working in this space for many years, but it'll be really cool just to hear what people think, So.
Oh yeah, I think people will have a lot of ideas and questions, and I know a couple people personally who will have a lot of very technical complaints and questions and things that they're curious about, like why does it do this, why doesn't it do that, can it do this? So I think that'll be great. I'll make sure to link your email in the description too. But you want to tell everybody what it is too, or what the best way to contact you is, if it's email or whatever other thing.
Yeah, the email is Veronica at didimo, didimo.co, or you can Google me and get in LinkedIn and send me a LinkedIn message. That's always very useful. Yeah.
Nice. Always good to go right to the top and start messaging the boss.
Just in case I miss the email. That's all. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is very cool. Like I said, I'm really excited about this because I've built a bunch of character creation systems, and I know how difficult it is and how much of a pain it is to make it work right, and especially with the props. So I think this is really cool. The SDK part really excites me. Do you have I don't know how much you can talk about it, but do you have kind of like a rough outline of what that SDK workflow would look like for developers they get in, like, or what your ideal is?
Yeah, absolutely. Even if someone goes to our website and they look at the videos of what Popul8 has, it's literally the same thing, but at runtime in game mode. So pretty much is the ability. So the SDK will allow you to create infinite characters in terms of variations of body shapes and in terms of facial expressions. We want to also add the ability of you upload your concept art. So if you create a new species, like an orc or an elf, we would be able to learn from it and automatically create you the whole cluster for that species. Yeah. And then it would allow you to, the SDK, so you uploading the whole assets, and we will do the asset fitting and the animation retargeting. So literally is grabbing Popul8 and putting it into runtime mode for the game. What we will not do is the user experience, so like the user interface. We will probably have one just as a sample, but that is so unique to the game that then the game itself will decide which features. So for example, if they wanna use the hair asset fitting, that's really important. Like a lot of when you create your characters, you want to put like the hair or the hats or even like the glasses, everything that goes into the head. It's really critical. So we will have the function that allows you to say, okay, all these assets, I want to fit them into the characters. So then they will use the function for asset fitting, So literally everything that is in Popul8, we will put it on the SDK, colorization, body variation, even the ability of uploading a selfie and being yourself into, or a representation of yourself in the game, or a concept art, so we can do that as well, because that's kind of like the origins of DDMO anyways, so.
Oh, really? I mean, first, that sounds really cool. I think that it seems like an awesome feature that should be probably just in every game engine, and eventually hopefully will. It seems like the path towards the holodeck, where you can just tell it to give me a character and get it. But yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that origin?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it has a story as well, this one. So when I was doing when I was having my research lab at the university, we did a beautiful project for kids with autism where we helped them by creating an application that allowed drawing and mimicking facial expressions on digital characters. And the whole purpose was the kids, in order to learn facial emotions, means that they need to be able to recognize themselves or recognize their peers, like their family and their friends. So we created this application that allowed mimicking and drawing facial expressions on themselves. But then what happened was that the dad of one of the little kids asked if they could use the application. This was in 2010, when the tablets has just came out. And I was like, oh, wow, a lot of people will really need to create a new way on how they will find their identity. And that's when I started really thinking on building yourself into digital characters, into virtual worlds. So yeah, that's how it started, the idea. And now, now into games, I think people will want to have a representation of themselves in some shape or form. So imagine you upload your selfie and you're an elf that sort of look like you because it extracted some of the traits.
Oh yeah, I think people would love that. I know people have tried to do similar things, but they very rarely went anywhere, and they were kind of like a little niche feature that somebody on the graphics team really thought was cool and wanted to put in, but they never really were like a big supported thing. At least not in any game that I've played or seen. But it seems like a very popular feature. Especially that everybody's got a phone now and just takes a picture of themselves constantly. Like, it's very easy to have a reference of yourself on there for the game. So I think that is cool, and it's probably going to be like 50 years down in the future, everybody will think it's weird that you played a character that didn't look like you.
Yeah, exactly. So we have that, and we could do it now. So we have that as an additional feature. So if game studios want to add it, then we can definitely bring it. So yeah, it could work on well. Yeah.
Well, it seems really, really cool, and I think the whole system in general seems pretty awesome. Like I said, character creation is one of the things, and not just character creation, but character management and mass character creation. Because I think sometimes people might think of just like PC, like the player character, but obviously right behind me you can see I got all these characters walking around, and in an MMO you've got ridiculous numbers of characters, and if you've played an MMO before, I'm sure you've seen that most of them look the same. It's like, hey, look, that's Gnome 12, that's Gnome 11, and that's Gnome 10, and they're reused across the whole world, and nobody really looks unique except for like one or two special guys, and then everybody's like, oh, I want to reuse that special model for my thing now. And yeah, this is a perfect solution for that. So I'm really excited about it, and I'm really glad you built it, and I love what it's doing in City Skylines. I think that it's great there. It's, like I said, one of my favorite games, and the characters just add a lot to it. You wouldn't think so, but without people walking around, totally different game.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few other things that we have that I haven't mentioned that I think might be really, really useful, which is people sometimes forget that when you create characters, then you have to test them and validate them, then the characters have been created correctly, and that all the garments and all the assets, they are fitted correctly, right? Like, so that you don't have, I don't know, like your t-shirt on top of your jacket, correct? Or, like the hats and the glasses are fitted correctly. So all that testing and validation requires a lot of time. That's why also games don't have many combinations. So we also can do automatic QA and what we call system verification. So that's upcoming on Popul8 as well, which we hope to save a ton of time and of course resources for testing and validation, which is also a very boring task. So yeah, we try to think everything that we can automate that is boring as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad for the QA automation engineers now. That's actually one of the things that I automated a long time ago. doing visuals and just simple spot checking though, just generating screenshots of all the things so you could spot check them and make sure that they weren't doing terrible clipping. But even then, it was like, yeah, they're gonna maybe look at 1,000 items in a day, and it's gonna take up their entire day, and
Yeah,
it's still gonna be problematic. They're gonna miss stuff. So
yeah, exactly.
it
So
sounds
yeah,
like
so
this is
we
just a
hope.
click.
Yes, we hope to bring QA and system verification also inside Popul8 and inside the SDK. So so if you're thinking of, let's say, imagine that we go to the blue sky, which is user generated content, right? So the gamers are creating new content that puts onto their game mods, right? So you also need to export that in the right style for that game, right? So we can also help on that sense. So if you're doing your own content, you can then pass it through our system. It will output in the style of the game that you want to put it in, and we can also test it and validate it. So the game studio will be, let's say, happy that you're not corrupting their style or their game in any shape or form, right? So for all the modders out there, user-generated content through Popul8 will also be coming up later this year. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds really interesting too. That's a topic that I've had a lot of discussions with people about lately. Just UGC and kind of the boom that's been happening there with Roblox and Unreal. And I know
Yeah.
Unity is working on their own stuff there too. But I feel like a lot of games now, it's become not just like a side thing that people, a couple people talk about and do, but now it's like a primary way that people are starting to create content and at least get into and get started with game development industry. And I mean, it seems like there are full-on companies being built around just putting together these things for these other games. So it'd be interesting. And I think the fact that you can make stuff match with those is definitely cool. And
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about it the way that you've explained it, there's no reason that modders couldn't just take your characters, drop them into Roblox or any other setup, right? I assume they're still going to work with the FBX file even if you don't do the custom shader stuff, right?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So everything that's got to do with like specific styles, we have to either, as a company, decide that we're going to be supporting Roblox or Minecraft or whichever style, or usually the game studio will contact us and say, hey, we want Popul8 to be, compatible with the style of this game, and then we give priority to those. So if we hear a lot of requests, we want Popul8 into the Roblox format, then we will be putting that forward into our roadmap to be able to export onto that style. Yeah, so we are giving, at the moment, we're working directly with game studios because they are the ones that are helping shape the features of the product. That's why I said before, if anyone, there is a more indie developer or there's the smaller teams, if you're keen in saying what you guys like, then more than happy to listen and to look it into our roadmap to help out as much as we can on character creation, because it's extremely, as you say, tough, expensive, yeah. And I'm really happy we managed to solve it after so many years. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that somebody finally tried to solve it because, like I said, it's hard, it's difficult, and getting a variety of characters that don't suck is very, very, very hard. I think even getting a variety in general where you don't have just a lot of overlap and reuse requires a lot of work. So the fact that you've automated that away is very cool. I guess, are there any other features of Popul8 that you think everybody should know about, or especially Unity and indie developers getting started, or maybe some of the people who are watching with a bigger project and they're trying to decide, like, will this fit into their game? Any last things that you would mention for them?
Maybe I can just summarize it. I think we've touched in the most important ones. I think if there's one thing that I would love for everyone to take away on our conversation is that we created a software that is meant to support the artists and the TDs, in terms of we build a technology flexible enough that can bring the style of your game and the specifications of your game, and artists and TDs are in full control of how all the characters would look like at the end of the day. For me, that was really, really important. That's what I discovered, 18 years ago on my PhD, and that's the software we wanted to build. And then it's really bringing diversity and inclusion into gaming, right? So I know those are two very important worlds, diversity and inclusion. I think the world is moving towards making a more united ecosystem, and gaming plays a key role in our lives. We want to have fun and we want to entertain, and so the more diverse the worlds we create the better. So we want to bring that diversity and that inclusion into gaming. And then the rest is the underlying tech. Is we own every single line of code, every single data model that we have. So there's no problem with all these AI and copyright situations, because the content is created from the artist at scale. So we streamline literally character creation, and we can optimize it so you can have tons of characters on your screen. So yeah, your style, your quality, your specifications, tons of characters on your game, fully diverse with infinite synthetic characters that you want to create that hopefully will represent the identity of people in some shape or form. So yeah, I think that will be a little bit of the summary.
It's a good summary. I mean, you've covered a lot of, I think a lot of the things that everybody needs in the game. The only thing you're missing is like dragons and four-legged animals and stuff, but maybe in the future.
Well, we actually been requested, if we could do chickens, and we did. So the tech, we have some really good chicken videos that we did. That was for a customer that as we created a ton of characters, they say, "Can you please do the chickens?" And we're like, "Okay, we'll do the chickens as well." So we can do animals and creatures that are non-human, but yeah, we'll leave that for the next podcast if you want.
Yeah, I'll leave that. I'll leave that for version 2. That seems very, very cool. I don't know. I'm very excited about this. Again, I want to just thank you for both coming on and sharing all this info, and more importantly for building it, because it's a very cool tool. And I think that the fact that you're making the SDK means that it's going to be open and available to everybody watching. Everybody can get in there and start playing around with it. For anybody who's at like a bigger scale, they're at a bigger company, and they're not wanting to wait around for the SDK. They're wanting to do something a little bit more custom, or look into something more custom. Should they contact you directly? Is there a contact point that you would put them to get more info and find out if it's a good fit?
Yeah, I mean, they can always contact us through the website, but if they remember my email, veronica@didimo.co, they can contact me directly, and they mentioned that, it was in our conversation, and that remind me really quickly where it comes from. That would be great. And for game studios that are bigger, we are building the SDK for them. So if you also need the SDK sooner, do reach out as well. The SDK for mass access, it'll take a bit longer because it needs a lot of testing and validation to make it generic. So, but if it is for a game studio, that's what we're delivering currently to some customers. So happy to talk about that as well. Yeah.
Well, that is very cool. So yeah, if you're interested in it, if you have characters in your game, check out Popul8 and contact them and see if you can put it into your game. Or if the SDK is out already, by the time you watch this, make sure that you just grab the SDK, go play around with it, and see what it can do for your game. So thank you again, Veronica. This was awesome. Like I've been very excited and just kind of waiting for this, because I wanted to learn more about it and see like how you guys made this happen in, like I said, right behind me, in games that I love. And I want to see if this is going to, I feel like this is going to be the kind of solution that I expect to see in all future projects, not all, but most future projects going forward, and it kind of like the long term. Like I still see it as like the beginning of holodeck technology. Like, hey, give me a character like this. Nope, make it a little bit taller, and like give him the glasses, and it's very exciting. So thank you again. Any final words before we go?
Thank you so much. Let's make video games as diverse as we can. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Veronica, and thank you everybody for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.